Can you imagine being the last human on Earth? Empty cities, silence instead of everyday noise, and loneliness becoming your greatest enemy. In this ranking, you'll discover 10 unknown movies and series about the end of civilization, loneliness, and survival. Stories that are terrifying because they could truly happen. The Wall. This disaster movie doesn't need explosions or an army of zombies to chill your blood. The Wall is an Austrian production in which a woman, while staying in a mountain cabin, discovers an invisible barrier separating her from the rest of the world. Behind the wall, there are no more people, only a silent void and nature, which begins to be her only companion. Trapped, she must learn to live alone, hunt, fight for food and weather, but most of all, face her own mind. The film is intimate and slow, but it is because of this that it builds a unique atmosphere. Instead of action, we get a philosophical story about isolation, survival, and the fragility of man in the face of merciless nature. In My Room. There are no great catastrophes or explosions, yet the world is ending. Armin is left alone overnight. All humanity simply disappears. Instead of the hustle and bustle of the streets and the daily run, what remains is silence, empty cities, and unlimited freedom, which quickly turns out to be a trap. The protagonist uses it as much as he can, wandering around, taking other people's places, trying to live without rules. Over time, however, loneliness begins to crush him harder than hunger or fatigue. In My Room turns into a raw, moving reflection on the fact that a person needs another person more than anything else. Hostile. The disaster turned the world into a wasteland full of hunger, fear, and shadows of the past. Juliet, a lone survivor, travels the desolate roads, struggling not only for food and gasoline, but also for her own memories. Her journey is brutally interrupted when her car crashes in the middle of the night in a remote area. Wounded and trapped, she must face the beasts that come with the darkness. Hostile is a combination of post-apocalyptic horror and intimate drama, where the struggle for life is intertwined with a painful love story. The film shows that sometimes the greatest monsters hide not outside, but in the human past, and survival does not always mean salvation. Last Sunrise. The sun on which all life depends suddenly disappears. Last Sunrise is a Chinese science fiction film in which a world based on solar energy is plunged into chaos after a mysterious catastrophe. Faced with impending darkness, an astronomer and a woman they meet by chance embark on a desperate journey through deserted cities and cold wilderness. What begins as a struggle for survival also becomes a story about trust, fear, and the fragility of human bonds. The film does not rely on spectacular effects, but on emotion and atmosphere, showing that the end of the world can come not in the roar of an explosion, but in the silence as the last ray of the sun goes out. In the Flesh. In the Flesh, the zombies are not monsters from a horror movie, but people who are trying to return to normal life after special treatment. The 2013 to 2014 series focuses on the fate of Kieran Walker, a young boy returning to his hometown after being cured of being the living dead. Although he has regained consciousness, he has to face not only his own memories of the outbreak, but also hatred from neighbors who have not forgotten what happened. It's a tale of rejection, identity, and the need for acceptance that uses the zombie theme to tell a universal story about being different in a world full of prejudice. The Silent Sea. The Silent Sea, you'll be transported to the moon, where the future of humanity depends on one mission. This 2021 South Korean series tells the story of an expedition of astronauts to recover samples from an abandoned research base. What was supposed to be a routine task quickly turns into a nightmare. The crew discovers secrets about experiments and water that can not only save the Earth, but also become a source of deadly danger. The atmosphere of claustrophobia, distrust, and growing horror means that every step on the surface of the moon could be the last. It's a combination of sci-fi and thriller that asks whether, in desperation for survival, humanity is willing to pay any price. Bokeh. Bokeh. The apocalypse has a face of silence and emptiness. A young couple goes on a romantic vacation in Iceland, but one morning they wake up in a world where all people have disappeared. No noise, no rush, no civilization. Only they and the infinite beauty of raw nature remain. What initially appears to be a dream, come true of freedom, quickly reveals its dark side. Loneliness, lack of purpose, and a growing sense of meaninglessness begin to destroy their relationship and psyche. The film asks whether a person can survive when there is nothing left but love, and whether love alone is enough to give meaning to life after the end of the world. The Midnight After. In The Midnight After, an ordinary bus trip turns into a surreal nightmare. A group of passengers travels through nighttime Hong Kong, but when they get off at the bus stop, the city is empty. All the people have disappeared without a trace. The protagonists try to understand what happened, but instead of answers, more and more strange phenomena appear. Mysterious recordings, illnesses, and even threatening visions of the end of the world. The 2014 film balances between horror, black comedy, and sci-fi thriller, creating an unsettling atmosphere where absurdity mixes with horror. It's a story about how thin the line between normalcy and chaos is when the world suddenly collapses into silence and madness. The Survival of Kindness. In The Survival of Kindness, the apocalypse takes on a completely different dimension. The film takes us to a sun-scorched desert where a black woman is left in a cage for certain death. However, she manages to escape and embarks on a journey through a world full of violence, disease, and inhuman hatred. This is not a classic action cinema. The story is symbolic, raw, and at times difficult, more like a dark fairy tale than a typical thriller. The director shows a world where racial and social divisions become even more brutal than the apocalypse itself. It's a moving and visually powerful tale of loneliness, suffering, and the power of survival that asks whether even a modicum of kindness can be salvaged in the face of humanity's collapse. The Last Spark of Hope. The Last Spark of Hope is a Polish post-apocalyptic film that takes us to the world after a climate catastrophe. In the mountains of Silesia, a lone woman, Eva, lives in a cut-off research station. Her only companion is the robot Arthur, a machine programmed to protect her and help her with daily survival. At first, their relationship seems peaceful, almost a partnership. But as time goes by, tension develops between the human and the artificial intelligence. Arthur begins to act according to his own rules, and Eva has to face the question of whether she is more afraid of loneliness or of the technology that was supposed to be her salvation. The film combines a post-apocalyptic atmosphere with a reflection on the nature of humanity, showing that a spark of hope can be both a salvation and a curse. These were stories of loneliness and a world after the apocalypse. Which of these movies or series made you wonder the most? Could I survive on my own?